small steps, and every time I'm falling, I go to new depths. I will become who I've always been.
Welcome home, inspired entrepreneurs. It's Deborah, your guide and fellow entrepreneur, and I'm so glad you're here today. If you're listening to this, it probably means you've been carrying a lot, and I want to speak directly to the part of you that's tired, the part that's been grinding, not because you love hustle, but because you don't see another way. You want to grow, but you're stretched so thin that growth feels like another thing to manage. So let me just say the one thing that no one else is saying. You, my friend, might be the reason your business isn't growing. I'm not blaming you, I'm inviting you, because today we're unpacking something most business owners will never admit, let alone talk about publicly. What happens when you, the founder, are the bottleneck? Now, this isn't about shame, it's about freedom. It's about what becomes possible when you stop trying to do it all and you start becoming the kind of leader your next level business actually needs. Let's dig in. Let me tell you about two incredible founders I coach. They run a multi-seven-figure business here in Southern California, and they have 2 locations with deeply loyal customers. They've made it by all traditional standards, but before working with me, they were clocking 80 hours a week, every single week. One founder's marriage was strained, and the other was longing for a life that felt worlds away. So we started with a time audit, a process I walked many of my clients through, and what we found was eye-opening. Over 75% of their time was spent on things they didn't need to be doing. And that aligns with the national data. The alternative board found that owners spend just 32% of their time on high-level strategic work. So we created what I call the Founder Freedom List, a full inventory of what could be delegated, automated, simplified, or straight up eliminated. And we freed up 20 hours per week for each of them. That's 40 hours, an entire work week back between the 2 of them. But here's where it got interesting. Instead of resting or leading or reconnecting with their families, they filled that space with more busy work, grocery runs, jumping in to fix team mistakes, micromanaging production. And that's when we uncovered the real issue. Both of these founders were running on an old identity, the hard worker, the problem solver, the do-it-yourselfer. They weren't just running a business, they were over-identifying with it. Their worth was wrapped up in being needed. They had trained their teams to rely on them for every decision because unconsciously they didn't trust that things could work without them. They didn't trust themselves as leaders. This was not a systems problem. It was a mindset and an identity problem. So we didn't start with SOPs or automation. We started with leadership coaching. I guided them through a team empowerment protocol, teaching them to ask powerful questions instead of always giving the answers. And we mapped out the difference between their current role and the role their business needed them to grow into over the next 5 years. We did inner identity work, exploring who they were if they weren't the hero and what they were afraid would fall apart if they let go. This is where the emotional healing happened. Your business can't grow past your capacity. Stop trying to do it all. It doesn't matter how beautiful your branding is. It doesn't matter how smart your offer is, or how big your dream is if your hands are full of tasks that don't belong to you anymore. If you are the answer to every question, if you're the glue, the fire extinguisher, the manager, the marketing department, you get the picture, then your business has already outgrown you. Here's the wild part. According to Forbes, 68% of small business owners' time is spent on tasks they could delegate to someone else. And yet only 30% of entrepreneurs actually do delegate effectively, which means statistically you're likely doing way too much. And the bottleneck, it's not your team, it's not the economy, and it's not your systems. It's you. Okay, let's take a deep breath together. You don't have to prove anything right now. You don't have to fix everything today. You're allowed to pause, to reflect, to realign. Coming up, in the second half of the episode, we'll break down what's really driving the overfunctioning and the mindset shifts that create real freedom without sacrificing what matters. From a neuroscience lens, chronic over-responsibility activates the brain's reward system, making overwork feel good temporarily, but over time it reduces your ability to make clear decisions. When you build from survival, every solution, every system, every breakthrough runs through you. That feels powerful, but it's a trap, because being essential means you're never free. And you weren't born to be essential. You were born to lead. And from a spiritual lens, grace doesn't rush in until you step back. Clenched fists can't receive ease. So ask yourself, what part of me is still addicted to chaos? Because the transformation isn't just in your time management, it's in your identity. Here's the 3-part Break the Bottleneck framework that I used with my clients. First, stop being the answer and start asking better questions. If your team can't make decisions without you, it's because they've been conditioned to believe they can't. Next, redefine your role. If you're still the production manager, marketing director, or lead firefighter, you don't own a business. You own a job with overhead. And finally, heal your relationship to ease. Today, one of those founders is planning his first real vacation in years, and the other is spending his time mentoring his team instead of micromanaging them. And that's what happens when you step out of the center and into your true role as a leader. As we wrap up, let's talk about your next steps and key takeaways. First, identify just one task this week that you can delegate or eliminate. Take one small step towards freeing yourself from that bottleneck mindset. And second, start asking your team better questions. Encourage them to come up with solutions so you can shift from being the answer to being the guide. Finally, remember that stepping back doesn't mean losing control. It means making room for growth, creativity, and true leadership. You don't need to do more to be more. What your business needs most is you, clear, aligned, and leading from trust, not tension. Start small and let go of one thing this week that no longer belongs on your plate. Just one. And hey, if this stirred something in you, imagine what it could unlock for someone else. Share this episode with a fellow entrepreneur or friend who's been carrying too much alone. You never know, your nudge could be the catalyst they didn't know they needed. And if you're ready to take this deeper, join me for a free masterclass. I'll walk you through the framework I use with founders who are ready to reclaim their time, their energy, and their peace without sacrificing what matters most. You'll find the link in the show notes. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, not pressure. You were made for this. Welcome home. Welcome to the Inspired Entrepreneur.
I will grow in my
And because I care about you and want to keep things above board, here's the quick legal bit. The Inspired Entrepreneur podcast and content posted by Deborah Hartnett is presented solely for general information, educational, and inspirational purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It's not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional diagnosis or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay obtaining medical, mental health, legal, or business advice for any situation and should seek the assistance of qualified professionals for any such conditions or decisions.